Okay, it's 3:00. We will call to order the Huntingburg Economic Development Commission meeting. Roll call. Kurt,
Here.
Reed,
Here.
Eric,
Here.
John, absent, and I'm here.
On the agenda, you have minutes of the prior meeting. The last meeting was, I believe, in December or November of 2024. I'm sorry, I don't have those minutes. That was the approval of the, help me here, pardon me? Poplar Ridge project. I don't have those minutes. I apologize for that. But, I think your next item is election of officers for the ensuing year.
Yeah.
You usually elect a president, a vice president, and a secretary. And you may do that by a slate of officers if you want, or you can do it individually.
President, anyone want it?
I'd like to nominate Rachel Steckler, retain her position as president of the commission.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, opposed? Carries. Vice President,
I nominate Reed Sockel to be vice president. My term's coming up though. So is mine.
who is, yeah, there are two rolling off, correct?
Mhm. Yeah, that's what I would.
That's Kurt and you,
Reed.
Reed.
Mhm. So I would nominate John. That works.
I think it was John, the previous president to Rachel.
I think he was.
I think he was, yeah. I think you have.
Step down.
Pardon?
You got demoted to vice president.
Yeah, he's set out for 2 years and got demoted.
Okay,
I'll second that motion if everybody's okay with it.
for John.
John.
Okay,
With
all
it.
in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And secretary.
The secretary's position, of course, is to attest to the minutes and to also attest to the signature of the president or vice president, whoever signs documents, essentially a witness. The minutes are generally prepared for them, for that individual to review and sign.
I was gonna nominate Eric.
I was gonna nominate Kurt.
I was gonna nominate Eric.
As long as Phil Schneider's around, I'm fine. If he'll remember to bring the minutes with him.
Yeah, sorry.
I don't think I was at the last meeting. That's why I don't remember
I
the
don't
Poplar
remember.
Ridge. I think I was
Oh, really?
gone. I don't think I was here.
We have a motion for Eric as secretary. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Kurt will second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
So if I can proceed then with the matter that's on the agenda today is the request of OFS Brands Holdings finance an economic development project with Huntingburg Economic Development Bonds. They would like to construct facilities and acquire equipment in the Industrial Park West EDA. It's at 4600 South, 400 West. It includes the acquisition and installation of manufacturing and processing equipment, the construction of new or expansion of existing manufacturing and processing buildings. They anticipate 20 new jobs within 2 years, I believe, and the estimated payroll of that project would be about $1.5 million a year. They are requesting the issuance of up to $4.5 million of economic development bonds to apply to the cost of the project. The proposed bonds would be for a term of 25 years. The Huntingburg Redevelopment Commission had met earlier last week, I believe it was, but they adopted a resolution pledging 90% of the tax incremental revenue from the allocation district to the repayment of the bonds. The Redevelopment Commission earlier had created a new allocation area in the Industrial Park West, known as the 2026 allocation area. And it's solely the area where this project will take place until 90% of the increment will be pledged to repay these bonds. If the TIF revenue isn't sufficient, The bondholder will make up the difference, and it is anticipated that OFS will purchase the bonds, and therefore, if the TIF revenue isn't sufficient, they will either lose on that payment or they will make up the payment. The city is at no risk on these proposed bonds. There's no city money that's going to be pledged toward it. The city is reserving 10% of the TIF revenue to cover expenses associated with administering the TIF district. But that's just kind of a general overview of the project. We have with us today a representative of OFS, Attorney William Kaiser, and also representatives from Crow, who are the financial advisors that have done the economic study determining the amount of TIF revenue, anticipated TIF revenue, and what kind of a bond issue that would support. So maybe Mr. Kaiser would like to give just
Yeah,
explanation of the project, maybe a
Sure.
description of the project.
Good afternoon, Bill Kaiser on behalf of OFS Brands. So OFS is in the fortunate position that it needs to continue to increase its manufacturing capacity here in the city of Huntingburg. Several years ago at Plant 18, which is adjacent to where this expansion will occur, it invested significant money, over $25 million in machinery and equipment in order to automate its processing facilities. That facility is now continuing to ramp up increasingly the production it's making. So these two expansions, which is 60,000 square feet and 120,000 square feet, are on the north side of Plant 18, which is right across from the Far Best Foods facility. This will allow it to stage and store more raw material in order to feed that machine in Plant 18, and also to have some assembly of the finished product that comes through Plant 18. The idea that is this will continue to assist OFS Brands to meet the growing demand for the sales it has as it's selling more and more product across the country, right here in DuBois County and in the city of Huntingburg, where it wants to continue to invest and increase its manufacturing capacity. This is planned out as part of some other expansions, things that are happening through other facilities in order to continue to make certain the investment also made recently in Plant 10, which is its central warehousing facility. It is a hub and spoke kind of piece. That is, the central warehouse is where most of the raw material is stored. And as raw materials and other parts and pieces and products are needed, and its other facilities are located through the city of Huntingburg, those parts go out to from the north end of that Plant 10, including to Plant 18 and these two expansion facilities. So this is a continuing part of the long-term integration by OFS to continue to make certain its manufacturing footprint in the city of Huntingburg continues to match the changing needs of the product. And one of these things you'll see in Plant 18 is this is more melamine now product versus real wood product. It's more durable. It's in higher demand. It meets the cross supply of the products from healthcare, open space, public spaces, and private office. So this is an opportunity for OFS to kind of be the furniture facility of the future. And it's a big step towards their ability to continue to meet the future needs of their customers right here in the city of Huntingburg.
And it's estimated that approximately 20 new full-time jobs will be created. And
That's right. So there is additional jobs that'll be created by this piece. There'll be another 20 that will be retained for people who will move around in the facilities. So the interesting part of that is, even though this is part of its continued automation to make these jobs easier, better, faster, there are additional jobs being created or retained with this expansion, and that will be true for other pieces that OFS is also looking at with respect to increasing the manufacturing footprint and the reinvestment here in the city of Huntingburg. So there are additional jobs, which is a benefit. These are also, in some instances, more highly skilled jobs. OFS has seen its base pay rate continue to increase, which is now right at $20, starting $20 an hour after your short period of on probation piece of it. So wages continue to increase even as these jobs get more specialized, and the retention is really important. And OFS has worked really hard to retain its employees with respect to the working circumstances, facilities, and benefits to keep these employees who are, OFS has a strong relationship, with its employees and its workforce here in the city of Huntingburg. Happy to answer any questions about the expansion. I would say just roughly numbers, it's about 12 to 14 million dollars in real property improvement, about $2 million in equipment. So primarily this is building and these two large facilities, 60,000, 120,000, and then the equipment mainly is equipment that is being used to store and prepare the raw materials coming out of the smaller of the buildings and feeding that into the existing Plant 18 facility, which was also previously expanded upon earlier on its north end in order to accommodate the throughput, which is increasing because the idea is that as time moves forward, this machinery this large piece of machinery they call Batch 1, which came in, was constructed in Germany and then reinstalled as this facility, will continue to increase its output as product demand continues to increase.
Bill, the location of that facility, is it, they were building a new plant, right at the intersection of, I guess that was then West 19th Street and whatever that north-south road is there. Is this part of that?
Yeah, well, yes. I mean, so I say two things. They also want to expand across the street.
So they're gonna be going on the north side of what would be 19th Street?
No, well, this is all just north of the railroad tracks.
Right.
Yeah. So there is yes, that's,
I don't know if that's plant's completed or not, but I know it's been under construction for, I don't know,
Yeah.
maybe the last year or
Yeah.
so, 6 months.
pardon?
It's actually two buildings. that
Yes.
are fairly new.
Yeah, so I think that, so it's back in 23, I think it was 23 that the Plan 18 got reorganized and in preparation for this expensive piece of machinery. Because the railroad tracks, they had to re-put piers and redo the whole facility to make certain that it didn't move when the train came through. So they spent a lot of money in preparing that. And then they also had to have dust collection systems, which went on the east side of the building. So they spent, besides the approximate $25 million for the equipment, there were several more $1 million just to prepare that plant. And then they also had the existing facilities, they moved and operated them while they were bringing the Batch 1 facility up, which took about 2 years, well, actually 3 years by the time the equipment they planned for the equipment because they had to put a significant down payment, I think $5 million in order to get the equipment built. And then as it was being built, is being brought over, then installed, then tested to that. So once that facility got up and running, it was determined that, hey, look, we needed some additional space on the north side. And then I think having invested that money, they said, in order to really make this facility operate and as our sales are growing, we need to build these two additional facilities, 60,000 square feet, which will be primarily the raw material preparation storage to go through the facility, and then the 120,000, which will be more assembly. So what happens in this facility is really it takes this raw material, runs all the way through the whole U shape and comes back out and gets stacked up on a skid, which is all the parts and pieces, components, edged, laminated, and that then gets sent over to a facility to be assembled into a podium, a chair, a desk, whatever that furniture is. The idea that will still happen depending on the type of product running through, but the expectation is that also may just go to the very north end of this 120,000 be assembled. So it could roll through a conveyor after being assembled instead of putting on a truck and transshipped to another facility, some of which will still happen to make the production more efficient and continue to help meet the future production needs.
The 25-year bond term, is that correct?
So TIFs are allowed for a 25-year piece of it. So when the TIF runs through, it can't go more than 25 years, but in Angie and Crow can talk about that a little bit. But so the other thing is that the Industrial West TIF district expired.
Was always what?
It expired.
Expired, okay.
Just recently expired. So it got reset for 25 years. So OFS's timing in that sense is good in the sense that, this bond issue will still happen just as this allocation area is being reset. So we'll see this. The other thing could happen, and that is we could come back and expand again, and hopefully we can, OFS continues to grow, and it may come back and ask, depending upon the amount of money being spent. There are a lot of, I'd say this, there's a lot of investment that OFS is making, through its manufacturing facilities, that it's not coming and asking for TIF. But given the significance of this investment, it is asking for TIF.
So then all the tax revenue off this project or off this property will go to pay the bonds.
90%.
90%.
Yeah.
What happens at the end of the payment of the bonds then?
Then it then starts paying the tax.
So the
So
tax
it's paying
revenue-
the tax, and then tax gets rebated back to pay the bond. Yeah.
Right, so after the bonds are paid off, then the tax revenue falls back into the city coffers? Is
It
that-
falls back as part of the allocation area. Yeah.
or-
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Maybe Angie ought to, yeah.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to get
We'll
ahead.
we'll let the financial expert talk about that. Thank
Let me
you.
jump in. Hi,
Yes.
hi, all. Angie Stino with Crow. So the first 25 years, the tax revenues, the tax payments that are paid by OFS will get set aside in the allocation fund. 90% of those will be used to pay the debt service.
Right.
OFS is the owner of the bonds, so they will pay their taxes and they will get those 90% of those taxes back, part of the debt.
Okay.
At year 25, when the TIF expires, by statute, you're limited 25-year new life. So it can't go longer than 25 years. At that point, all the assessed value, all the value of that property, the taxes from those will then be distributed and shared amongst all the taxing units. So that's the city, that's the county, the school, the library.
So it becomes a normal.
Kind of like normal.
transaction every-
Yep.
Okay.
And just as a reminder too, to keep in mind too, like during this period for TIF, the school's referendum fund is outside of that. So they will continue to collect 100% of those referendum dollars. So I think that's important to note as well, that they will continue to collect all the dollars from the referendum fund that was approved by voters in the school corporation's taxing district.
Those don't get tipped, is what
That's
we're saying,
correct. Yep.
The referendum bond.
And then also, I think just the big picture piece of it, what Crow has identified that this is a bond not to exceed $4.5 million. OFS is putting, $14 million.
Right.
So its ability to recover costs through tax, is pretty,
Mhm.
a third, or maybe of the total amount that it's piece of it. And part of that question is that even though you spend that amount of money, what the assessment turns out to be will be what the city or the county ends up assessing that improvement for, which generally is not the amount of money that you actually expended to build the
Mhm.
facility. It generally
Right.
gets assessed at something less. And so that's why Crow comes in and makes this reasonable, plausible, practical assessment of what a appropriately sized bond would look.
Okay.
I didn't take the thunder there.
Did a great job.
I think earlier, you were all emailed Crow's report, and Angie may go through that with you or explain that.
Yeah, so if everyone does have that handy in front of them, this is really did you all get that?
No.
Oh, I thought that was all emailed to.
You have a copy, Bill, you can share.
Let me just talk and I'll make some
Yeah.
copies.
So what Phil's gonna pass out is really just our estimated amortization schedule. So our process really begins with taking inputs and investment information from OFS. In this case, there are two phases. So the first phase is the expansion and the personal property piece. And based on the timing that OFS has provided, we would expect the tax revenues for that first piece to come into play next year. So pay 27, the June 30, 27 and December 30, 2027 will be the first time we see TIF revenues from this investment. The second phase is the second building, and that's expected to occur on the second year. So when we're sizing our bonds, you'll see sometimes revenue shift. And we're really sizing that 25 years based on what that estimated 90% of those tax revenues are.
Mhm.
Additional piece with amortization schedules, when we are putting them together, anytime there's personal property involved, it always looks a little bit different. So it may not be a flat 200,000 every single year. And that's because personal property depreciates based on the type of property it is. That fluctuates. So we always look at what we estimate for the total real property, which is your buildings, your improvements, plus the personal. And then that then becomes our revenue constraint. And then we size the bonds based on, hey, if this is how much we're gonna get, how much debt can I afford? How much does this pay this bucket? And that's really what our process is as we get started. And then we produce the amortization schedule, which Phil will pass out. But right now we're looking at about $3.9 million bond issue. This is just estimated. We'll update this again before we close, but it will not exceed 4.5 million. It won't be more than 90% of the estimated TIF revenues that the project's gonna generate.
So when you project the tax rate, do you use the current rate over the full term of the bonds?
We do, there's definitely shifts in tax rate, and we know that. With this being a
Always,
commercial.
always it goes up.
With this being a commercial property, we know the cap is $3 because that's a $3 circuit breaker
So
cap.
that-
So we keep it at its current rate and project that forward and just hold that. We don't assume any other growth as well and any improvements. I think what's important to know in looking at that is again, as has been mentioned, that Bill mentioned, is that the company's buying the bonds. So say something happens and, oh gosh, assessor, we assess this lower than what you projected. We're not gonna get the 224,000 a year that you said we're gonna get. OFS is still only gonna get up to 90% of those taxes. The city will never have any more risk or any more additional monies outside of what 90% of the taxes are gonna be generated. They will always retain that 10% for their purposes. Any other questions as you may have? I might just wait here until they come back. They should go look at it.
Yeah,
But really, that's our approach. So, and we'll finalize it and size it within the parameters that are approved by the authorizing bodies.
it's amazing that the development and the growth that the company's had for the last 10, 15 years.
Yeah, the CapEx budget that OFS has been expending, last year, this year, and expects to expand for next year, in order to revamp its manufacturing base. And the thing is that, OFS, part of this, remodeling, so to speak, or remaking, restructuring, it's also going to allow it previously did this to allow it to bring its chair manufacturing facility in Park back to the city of Huntingburg and Park down to Litchfield. But also what will happen now, which is already happening, particularly as product start blending, that it will be able to take some of its production out of North Carolina, Archdale, and bring that back to the city of Huntingburg. Because what'll happen is, instead of it having either contract manufacturer or its facilities down there manufacture, they'll be able to do it easier, cheaper, faster here, better control. But previously there was just didn't have enough production. So, and then now the efficiency of this machine, as they continue to learn and understand, not only its capabilities to do this work, but the ability to change and shift, running different products through, then shifting different products through. And then now having the central warehouse facility, which I talked about the north side of Plant 10, which is where all the parts and pieces are. If you look in, it's like, Raiders of the Lost Ark, you got these high bay pieces of it. But the back side, the south side, which is where all the finished product now centralized goes out the door.
Yeah.
And then right across the street is, Skyline Diesel Logistics, which are all the trucks and trailers. So the efficiency of which that is happening is increasing, which, continues to make them able to, chase additional sales and grow, which has been pretty impressive.
You wonder what impact robotics will have on the labor need down the road, if that's going to.
Yeah, well, I always say this, I tell my people that AI is a tool, AI doesn't replace it, but, robotics should make the job easier. And I think, certainly, this batch one facility is making both the job easier because there's less handling of the equipment and the product, but it also is making it more efficient because of the cuts those robots make to save not only on raw materials, but also on, the upholstered parts of it, and the pieces. So, which continues to make the job easier. So I think that hopefully that's the way things happen is that, but there are, even with this facility, there are jobs being created as they're continuing to expand.
I know now that you all have the financing scenario in front of you. I don't know if there's any questions, but you can see on the first page is really just the source and uses of what is the maximum power amount that we've calculated. All of our assumptions are found in the footnotes. The second page brings in the amortization schedule. So you'll see that's just your principal and interest. And then on the third page is really the bond solution. And that's where it shows that we've calculated 90% of the TIF revenues. which is in that column called revenue constraint. And you can see how it varies over year. And that again is due to the timing of when the real property is coming on, but more importantly, the personal property. And the assumption that there will be, once it depreciates fully, there would be a reinvestment because that personal property would still be needed by the company. So that's why you see it kind of wave over time. And then just the excess within the 90%.
In the mechanics, the OFS would enter into a bond purchase agreement where they would agree to purchase the bonds that if they are issued if they're recommended by this commission and approved by the council, OFS would buy those. The city would contract with Old National Wealth as trustee to be a trustee of the proceeds of the bonds. So the proceeds of the bonds would then be expended on the project, and the city would pay its TIF revenue from this district to the trustee, who would then apply them to the bond payments. And if the bond payments, if the TIF revenue isn't sufficient, OFS just doesn't collect it. They have to pay their bills without TIF money.
I think the other thing that's important is that OFS also signed engagement letters. So with respect to the costs of the issuance of this bond, OFS picks all those costs up, in connection so that the city's not out of pocket for attorney's fees or financial advisor fees or those pieces, those costs, all come out of the proceeds of the bond, but in this instance, they'll come out of what OFS will end up paying.
That is correct. City's at no cost here and no risk either. So before we have the public hearing and hear of the public clamor that's out there, there should have been emailed to you, and I apologize. This project report that you should consider approving, just pass it down. It's essentially a brief synopsis of what Mr. Kaiser just presented to you. It describes in very brief fashion the proposed project, the location, the proposal to issue to fund the project with up to $4.5 million of economic development bonds. As we've seen, Crow has indicated that it's going to be more likely $3.9 million based upon the TIF revenue available. That no public facilities other than the project will be funded with the proceeds of the bonds, and that the estimated project will result in 20 new full-time jobs and a payroll of about $1.5 million a year. And that is essentially the project report that this board needs to consider approving.
Everybody have a chance to read it?
Yeah.
Do I have a motion to approve the project report?
If I'm able, I'll make the motion. We approve the project
Okay.
report as presented.
Eric, in a second.
Second.
Kurt, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I'm just gonna give you one copy. Rachel to sign, and where's the second thing?
Yeah.
Eric.
Okay.
Mr. Owner is honored. We did it based on your reputation, Phil. He said as long as you're around, he'll be secretary.
Maybe that's a guarantee that I'll live another year. Or be employed another year. It seems a little remote or unimportant, but the board also needs to, commission also needs to authorize me to share this report with the plan commission. Again, just a motion in the minutes authorizing the filing of this report with the plan commission.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to.
I'll second it.
Eric, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And then this is the time and date that has been advertised for a public hearing on the proposed issuance of economic development bonds. I'm just going to, this is proof of publication. We don't actually have the publisher's affidavit yet. Now that the newspapers are no longer as popular as they used to be. It takes forever to get a publisher's affidavit, but we've got a tear sheet, the actual page from the newspaper, and I'll introduce that into the minutes of the meeting to show that this public hearing has been advertised, duly advertised on June 30 edition of the Herald. And Ms. Chairman, you may open the meeting now for public comment.
Okay, we'll open the meeting at 3:30 PM. Do we have any public comment?
I'll make public comment. Just, E.L. Elkins, Mayor, we've been very happy with our relationship with OFS, and during this time, some people look at this and say, well, it's just 20 jobs, but it's a long-term commitment to keep jobs in this community. We're very appreciative of their continued investment in Huntingburg, because they could invest elsewhere. But right now, as the salaries continue to increase at OFS, the quality of the jobs are getting better. So I just encourage you to move forward. That's all I have. Thank you.
Nope. Okay,
May entertain a motion to close the hearing.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn the hearing.
I'll second.
Kurt, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And the next item that you need to approve would be what are known as the financing documents. The financing documents consist of a financing and covenant agreement between the city and OFS, a bond purchase agreement between the city and OFS, a trust indenture between the city, OFS, and Old National Wealth Management, the trustee, and finally, a proposed bond ordinance that the Common Council will consider at its next meeting for adoption. The finance and covenant agreement, the very first document I referred to is an agreement between the city and OFS where the city agrees and covenants to issue its taxable economic development bonds, the proceeds of which will be made available to OFS for the project. And OFS covenants and agrees to use the proceeds of the bonds on the project. And then there's a bond purchase agreement with OFS and the city of Huntingburg and Old National Wealth, where they agree to purchase the bonds and repay the bonds according to the bond schedule. And then there is a trust indenture between Old National Wealth, the city of Huntingburg, and OFS, where the city agrees to collect the TIF revenue to disperse it to Old National Wealth. Old National Wealth will then use it to pay the bondholder, and the bondholder can then use it to retire its debt. And then there's the bond ordinance, which actually authorizes, the council would authorize the issuance of these bonds. So these documents are here if you want to read through them, or I could read them. I stutter when I read, but I could read verbatim if you want me to. So the next action item would be to approve the financing documents. And by the way, they are fairly standard set of documents prepared by bond counsel Ice Miller of Indianapolis,
You're
specifically for this project.
suggesting we don't need to read them.
I would never suggest you don't read what you're going to approve. Never would suggest.
Well, it sounded like you were leading that way.
Well, interpret it how you will.
How many pages is it?
I don't know. Some of them, I noticed are just copied on double sides, so that's a lot of pages.
Yeah.
We have a motion to approve the financing documents.
I'll make a motion.
Reed, a second.
I'll second it.
Kurt, all in favor?
I-
Opposed? Motion carries.
Again, I don't know why, but the process requires the secretary to initial in front of each of these. So you're just initialing that. these are the documents.
Anywhere on here?
He made no motion, but
You
he's got
you
his
can initial
signature all
upper
over
right
it.
hand.
Right hand corner, okay.
Hey, I'm just following instructions.
Front and back, Phil?
No, just the top of
Just the
each,
top?
the top of each document.
Okay, all right, gotcha. that's it, that's in place. Yeah, more than just that one.
No, that's all. And then there's just. Thank you.
Now you know why they nominated you to be the
Yeah.
secretary.
Yeah, that's, that one.
And then finally, you have, do they have the resolution there? Mayor, did they get the resolution?
Yes.
Okay, you have the resolution. You're asked to consider adopting a resolution. It will be Economic Development Resolution number 1. It does several things. First of all, it makes a finding that the project will benefit the health and welfare of the citizens of Huntingburg, that it promotes economic development and job opportunities and job diversification. It is in the public interest to finance this project for those purposes. It recommends the issuance of up to $4.5 million in economic development bonds. And you're making a finding that there has been presented at today's hearing no evidence of an adverse impact of any competitors of OFS existing in the community. And it also approves the substantially in the substantially final form, the documents, the financing documents that I described earlier. That would be the finance and covenant agreement, the bond purchase agreement, the trust indenture, and the bond ordinance. So that's what the resolution does.
Do we have a motion to adopt resolution number EDC 2026-01?
I'll make a motion that we
Eric,
approve the
second.
resolution.
I'll second it.
Reed, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And then I need signatures on it. I'll just put the signature. Whoops. Here, I'll put the signature page on the front. And that's all on your agenda, but you're open to any other business, I assume.
Anybody have anything else? No? Motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Bert, and a second.
I'll go ahead and second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion, or meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Thank all of you for taking time today.
Sorry. Somebody says.